Well, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for our new knowledge session. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I am with Locust, formerly known as Virginia Community Capital, and we are one of the partners in this professional development series, as we call it, New Knowledge. The partners include the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, that's Washington County, Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and the town of Abington. And we've been doing this since 2014 as a way to support our business challenges in our region, but also to help businesses continue to get training to be successful going forward. Today's session is being recorded for educational purposes. And to keep the webinar flowing, we do have everyone muted. But if you have a question for our presenters, if you will post those in the Q&A section, we will address those during and especially after the session. And today's session will be available on our YouTube channel called New Knowledge, and will also be available later today on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page. We're happy today to have our friends at People Incorporated lead this session. If you're not familiar with who People Incorporated is, they're here in Southwest Virginia and other parts of Virginia. And they are a community action organization providing opportunities to economically disadvantaged people to reach their goals and to enhance their lives, families, and the communities that they serve. They offer a variety of financing programs, which you're going to hear about today for both startup and existing businesses. But one of the important things that we wanted them to share is there are resources out there and financing available, but how you prepare and what a lender looks for that you need to know before you go seeking financing. And we're pleased to have Leslie Currle she's a business lender at People Incorporated, as well as Justin Lewis, who is the trainer and technical assistant specialist at People Incorporated. I hope that you are ready to ask a lot of questions and take a lot of great notes. This is to help you, and especially after the session, use this as a resource, as a refresher. So Leslie, Justin, I'm turning it over to you, and thanks for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Thank you to you and our partners at Locust Group for inviting us. I've been looking forward to this for many months. So as Sandy said, my name is Justin Lewis. I'm the trainer and technical assistant specialist here for People Inc. Financial Services. And I'm joined today, I'm pleased to say, by an experienced business lender advisor on our team named Leslie Currle, who operates out of Woodstock up in the northern region. So to start a little bit about People Inc., this is our 60th year. You can see my little 60 up here. We serve the communities that we are in a number of capacities. In 16 counties, we are the designated community action agency, but the services we offer here in financial services reach over 40 counties across the state. Our mission, underlying all of our actions, is to provide opportunities for economically disadvantaged people to reach their goals in order to enhance their lives, their families, and their communities. That comes in the form of community economic development, education, workforce, housing. Oftentimes people will know one of the pillars that we operate in, but not all of them. We're here today to talk a little bit about financial services. Some of our outcomes, I'll direct you to this green pillar right here. This is some of the funding we have used to help start and expand businesses across the state of Virginia in our service areas. And we are continuing to develop that and reach as many communities as we can. So our service region down here in the Southwest, that's where I am. It's 24 counties. It's out to the West Virginia line, up to about Allegheny and Botetourt. You'll see that. It's all the counties in between there, as well as the incorporated cities like Norton and Wise, for instance. Leslie and some of the rest of our team is up here in the Shenandoah Valley in Northern Virginia. We are, those are the places where we're active currently. So getting into the training side of things, I just want to remind everybody that all of the information is purely my point of view. It's for educational purposes only. I'm not qualified or allowed to give you legal or financial advice. You'll have to discuss your situation with your financial and legal advisor. All right, what are we going to talk about today? When I do these trainings on on small business financing, I like to start several steps back before the moment that you actually walk into the financial institution and start to apply, because you'll need to be prepared to discuss some things with the lender, with the creditor, with the grantor. So we'll start with assessing your financial standing, and then we'll talk about how to prepare for applying for those funds, the process of applying for those funds, and then what are your funding options? And then finally, we will discuss what a lender looks for, and that'll pivot into a discussion with my colleague Leslie about her experience as a loan officer and some information from her time working in that process. So the underlying question for a business at some point is, do I need financing? And whether you end up needing it or not, you will need to be able to answer the question. So how do you know if you need it? And if you do need it, how much do I need? Is it a ballpark number? Is it a specific number? Let's talk about that. You start at what I call the pre-step, because before you do this, you can't even progress into seeing what your options are. And that's assessing your current financial standing. And for the purposes of this training, we'll talk about financial standing in the context of your business, where it stands as far as assets, cash flow, strategy. So the reasons you might need to know your financial standing are going to be the viability of your business. This is one of the fundamental questions. Can the business exist as it currently operates? Is there a structure in place that leads to profitability? Can it pay for itself? You will also need to know for strategy purposes. Are you ready to grow or expand? Do you want to hire some new staff? You might want to go in the opposite direction and maybe streamline or downsize. You might want to launch a new initiative. You may want to determine and develop a marketing strategy. You always need to know where you stand as the owner, because if you know exactly how much your business costs, you can start to know exactly how much you can draw safely without putting your business in jeopardy. Sometimes that takes some time to build up your business to that place, but you can only know it by knowing what your financial standing is. And then finally, funding. Financial transparency is a huge part of the funding process. So you will need to be able to communicate about your financial standing. No creditor, whether it's a bank or a CDFI or an investor, is going to finance your business based off luck or good vibes. You're going to need to be able to communicate about the particulars. So when you're assessing your financial standing, what do you need to know? Well, at the baseline, you need to know how much cash you have. That's money that is ready, it is liquid, it is ready to flow out of your account. It is not tied up in an asset, it's not paying down debt, it's ready to use to invest in your business. Your assets, is there real estate attached to it? Do you have any valuables or vehicles? Is there furniture, fixtures, or equipment? Are there liabilities attached to those assets? Are you paying a lien on the truck that you use to run your construction business? And then you'll need to know and be prepared to discuss potential collateral, because nearly everybody will ask about it. That's what you are willing to discuss as potential collateral, but also what's the realistic value of it. And the thing to remember here is what you paid for it is not the value. So, you know, collateral depreciates, obviously, and so you will need to be able to communicate about the value of the collateral as it stands right now. How do you do all that? Bookkeeping. You keep track of the numbers and then you review them routinely. One of the best bits of guidance I've gotten about running a small business, because it's always a lean staff, you're always on a shoestring budget, is you do it or you pay somebody to do it. It can't not get done. And there's no wrong answer to it. It's just what's right for your business. And bookkeeping is probably one of the most fundamental examples of this. You can't not know. So are you going to spend the time to do it, or are you going to work with somebody who does it for you? Whether you work with somebody or whether you do it yourself, you'll need accounting software. And there are lots of options. Some of the common ones are QuickBooks and FreshBooks and Zoho. What you want to take into account when determining the right software is how much time do you have and want to spend on it? Does it have advising options? Sometimes I know it's the case in the business I run with my wife, is we need somebody to talk us through a process. We didn't go to accounting school. Is there multi-feature integration with your accounting software, like a point of sale system? Is there an app to support it? Can you do payroll through it? Is there a client interface platform for checking your child in and out of daycare, for instance? Obviously, you're going to want to consider cost and how easy is it to use? How much time will it take you to get up to speed on it? You'll also need to work at some point with an accounting professional. This doesn't mean that you have to pay a full-time bookkeeper. You might be ready and able to do that yourself, but you will need some advising at some point. And when it comes to tax purposes, you usually want to work with a professional. Another bit of guidance I've gotten in this regard is the most successful entrepreneurs I've worked with have worked with a good team of professionals. Usually that means a good lawyer, a good accountant, a marketer, a banker. It's going to be unique to your industry. Something with good books is it becomes simple and efficient to generate financial statements, which you're going to need for the funding process. You don't have to make them. You can just have the system generate them for you. And then it also helps you keep your business and your personal expenses separate. I see that often with clients that I'm working with, is that those two things get tangled up with each other, and it gets harder to navigate both of the arenas. When you go to apply for funds, so you've answered the question. You said, okay, yes, we're going to need funding for something. The underlying proposition is the cost value proposition. So that's at what point does the value of the improvement justify the cost of the improvement? So not just the dollar amount, but what is it going to bring your business in value? Can you increase your price? Can you increase capacity, more clients, taking more kids into your daycare, for instance? Will you be able to reach a new market? Can you offer a new service? At some point, the cost of the money, which is essentially the interest rate or the time and legwork that you put into getting it, may or may not justify the value that you will gain from it. Some things to remember when you're assessing your financial standing. No magical thinking. You can't hope it's going to work out. You have to plan for it to work out. A phrase we use on our team is we want to see reality, not perfection. And that often demonstrates a certain amount of seasonality in your business, knowing where the ebbs and flows. Do you have more business in the winter than in the summer? Is it a vacation spot? That all demonstrates capacity for the working knowledge of your business. And the business structure and operation of your business must cash flow. If that gets upside down, no amount of funding is going to save it. So you have to find a way to keep that operation right side up so that the business can eventually pay for itself. A path to profitability is often the phrase used there. And borrowing money is not a long-term solution. It is a strategy that you employ at the right time. Sometimes businesses get into trouble because they get funding at the wrong time. They're servicing debt before they're at the capacity to be able to keep up with it. You then move into the steps of actually applying for funds. So the first step is you determine the purpose. Equipment. Are you going to renovate part of your space? Do you need working capital to bridge the gap because we're hiring new staff or offering a new service? Are you buying a building or investing in real estate? Are you investing in a new product or service? And the next step is to determine the amount. So the most important factor here is to be specific. You want to avoid I think $30,000 would do us. Don't estimate, calculate. And so that will be building good financial projections and the application of the funds and saying, how exactly is it earmarked for spending and investment? And the only way to do that is by navigating your cash flow projections. This is especially valuable with working capital. So working capital is the funds you need on hand to make it through 3 months, 6 months, however long. The only way that you can be specific about that is to have a good understanding of the real expenses of your business month over month, especially if you're making an investment. So you might have to, an investment often requires you to step back before you can make progress. You want to calculate the startup expenses and you want to be specific to the penny and add those up. You'll find through this process that it's often not as close to your judgment call, the I think $30,000 would do us method. A lot of times it's a lot less than you thought it was. It's a lot less daunting. You're like, oh, I thought it would be 30,000, but I actually think it's 18. Or it might go in the other direction. Oh, wait, if we want to build on a wing to this business that we're operating, it's going to be a lot more than we thought. So we're going to have to strategize around that. It's important not to borrow more than you need because obviously the less you borrow, the quicker and easier it is to service it. The idea of building your business very leanly as you go at every phase, keep your belt as tight as you can. One of the phrases I've heard is hire when it hurts. It means exhaust every option you have before you pay for it. The next step, it's determining the timeline. And the underlying question to this is when do you need the money? If the answer is right now, you're probably in a tough spot. The idea when you're reviewing and analyzing your financial standing is that you're doing that routinely on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, whatever fits for your business. But it's routine enough that you know where you stand from month to month because when you need the money is going to influence where you can get it from. A good rule of thumb with timeline is that the faster you can get the money, the more expensive it's going to be. So revolving credit is a great example. Your credit cards, it's there. I can take my credit card, I can use it right now, but that's got a really high interest rate. A term loan has a much lower rate, but I have to go through the due diligence of applying for it. It might take weeks, it might take 6 weeks for me to get all the documentation in, have it approved, and get the payout. So determining the timeline is essential. And if you have a good idea of your financial standing, you can anticipate and address issues. Next, you want to start to assess your credit worthiness. In a lot of cases with small businesses, this is going to be your personal credit worthiness. So you're going to want to know where your credit score stands and also what's on your credit report. Some tools for that. You individually as a consumer are entitled every 12 months to a free credit report from each of the 3 credit bureaus every 12 months. So once a year, you can pull a report from each of them and see what's on it. The important thing about that is to correct all errors, whether it's a single digit on your phone number, whether it's your social security number is off. It's a lot of data. They get it wrong. It gets entered wrong sometimes. Some people like to use things like Credit Karma. The thing to remember about that is that that is an estimate of your credit score. It is not the exact representation. So it's a ballpark figure to get you going in the right direction. Sometimes seeing that those numbers are a feature on a credit card or with your bank app. There is a difference between your personal and your business credit. The industry standard for personal credit is your FICO score. Your business credit is with an organization called Dun & Bradstreet. That is a paid service for your business. The important thing about business credit is that it is attached to the business. So if you sold the business, for instance, it would go with the business. And with many small business loans, they're going to ask for a personal guarantee. So likely or often it will be attached to your personal history. You want to determine the state of your collateral. So what is collateral? It's placing a lien on an asset to back the value of the loan. Common examples of collateral are the equipment you're buying, real estate, a vehicle, cash in the form of CDs or securities, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. So we're investing in shelving for this warehouse that we're funding, And all of that stuff, the lighting fixtures, all of that is attached as collateral. The thing to remember, and I mentioned this, is collateral depreciates. So be prepared to demonstrate the value. So that's the resale value, that's an appraisal. It has to be a measurable, calculable number. Next, and the step that a lot of people want to start with is explore your options. So those options are you, grants and government funding, crowdfunding, investors, bank financing, CDFIs and microloans. We at People Inc. are a CDFI, and then alternative options. The first one is you. Sometimes this is called bootstrapping. That might be your savings, a home equity loan. You might have a friend or a family that want to invest in your business. You might liquidate some of your retirement. The upsides of you funding it for yourself is the money's there. You already have it. It doesn't cost you anything. And you have more or less immediate access to it. The downsides are there is a limited amount. Once it's gone, it's gone. You had $20,000 that you liquidated. I often see clients, they have a very fixed timeline for their business when they're bootstrapping. It also mixes up your personal and your business finances. And with that, there is personal financial risk. And one of the pieces that goes along with that is it does put into the equation your relationships with the people who are tied up with your personal finances. We've seen businesses fall apart because the relationships between the business owners and investors fell apart. The next option is grants and government funding. One of the kind of running um, joke is probably too strong a word, but quips in our industry is that everybody who walks through the door wants a grant. And the thing to remember about grants and government funding is that there's no such thing as free money. Everything costs you something. So grants often don't cost you in the form of an interest rate, but they are industry specific. They might be specific to certain kinds of owners. There are often most likely compliance and outcome metrics that you'll have to report based off the use of the funds. And then oftentimes how you use those funds, the timeline in which they're applied. They often aren't in the form of cash up front, they are reimbursements. So the pros of a grant is there is no repayment plan typically, which means there's no interest rate. That's all great. And it doesn't affect your credit because they don't even look at your credit. They look at your grant application. The downsides are it is time consuming to go out and find these grants, write grant proposals. You have to do the legwork. You have to often work with somebody in order to fulfill these grants. There are excellent grant writers that can be hired for a fee, but you have to work with them. They're mostly hyper specific and attached to an outcome of some specific kind. We're trying to revitalize childcare in X region, for instance. And along with that, there are going to be strings attached. The next option is crowdfunding. This one I notice, it gets discussed a little bit less often. There are two fundamental kinds of crowdfunding, donation versus reward. So the donation is there is no expectation of a return on investment. This is GoFundMe, this is CrowdRise, this is we are donating for you to be able to do X activity or start X a project. Whereas reward crowdfunding is it's pre-selling the product or service in order to get capital up front. So this is Kickstarter, this is Indiegogo. I've seen people write comics off of reward crowdfunding. People write books. I think Zach Braff made a movie off of crowdfunding. So the upsides of crowdfunding is it's really individualized. You design it, you customize it, it's specific to your needs. There is no interest rate, there are no terms attached to it, and there aren't industry restrictions. As long as you're honest about it, you can typically fund it. The downside to all of that is it takes time. You have to design and execute a fundraising campaign. You might not meet the goal. So a lot of times these campaigns come in the form of pledges. And sometimes if you don't meet it, you don't get any of it. And then you can't overuse crowdfunding. You can't crowdfund every quarter. You kind of have to pick your campaign, go for it, and then move on with it and find other forms of funding down the road. Next, you have investors. So investors, they come in a number of forms. So there's equity investors who have equity in your company, angel investors, those are individuals that are going to back your company, and then venture capital firms. The big thing about investors is that they are looking for high growth industries with something like a 10x return on investment. So the upside of it is you can raise big money really fast. You see tech companies in Silicon Valley, big manufacturers, and the repayment is paid in increased value of the company rather than debt. So that's an advantage. That's good. And so with capital comes tremendous growth potential. You can grow really fast. You can reach a really big market quickly. The downside of that is it has pretty limited application. If you want to start your lawn care company, an angel investor is probably not going to be in that world. So it's not really an option. So unless they have some really big return on investment option, investors probably aren't an option. And also with an investor, you surrender some of the ownership. You see business headlines of founders being pushed out of companies once they become successful because the stakeholders pushed them out. It is also a timely and costly process. It takes a team of lawyers and accountants and financiers. It's a highly regulated process, so there's a lot of compliance involved. Next, and this one's pretty common, especially in the small business sector, bank financing. This is typically in the form of term loans or lines of credit. Something to remember about bank financing is have a relationship with a banker, not just a bank. Because a good banker is going to know the variety of options in your community, in your region, in your industry, and they can discuss those things with you rather than being too locked into one product. With banks, you have three tiers. You have your big banks. This is your JP Morgan, your Bank of America, your Wells Fargo. You have your mid-size and your regional banks, and then you have community banks. The reason I make this distinction is because community banks typically do the underwriting on their loans in-house. That means that the loan officer that's working with you can have a relationship with them in some way. They can communicate in a more nuanced way about your loan proposal. And at the big banks, the loan officer is going to enter those terms. It's going to get sent off to an underwriter in Manhattan, and they're going to approve it based on policy, cut and dried. You can apply for credit cards online, and they can approve you instantly based off of algorithmic approvals. But in the small business world, having that kind of dynamic relationship at a community bank can really serve you. The pros of a bank: clear terms. You know what you're getting typically. If the banker can't explain that to you, then find one who can. You're typically going to get some of your cheapest capital here because they've put it through due diligence. They're going to have some of the best interest rates based on the market conditions. And then they usually have a variety of products, in-house products. They might be attached to an SBA program. The downsides are pretty low approval rates, all told. There's no official data on it, but we don't know how many loan proposals die on the desk of a loan officer based on whatever reason. There is an interest rate attached to it, so that capital costs you something. Banks are also typically looking at some kind of demonstrated performance. They want to see proof of concept. So oftentimes they won't work with a startup at all, for instance. And it can and will affect your credit and your financial standing because they're going to pull your credit score. There's probably a personal guarantee attaching it to your credit history. Next are CDFIs and microloans. I put these under the same umbrella, but they are not the same thing. So a CDFI is a community development financial institution. People Inc. is a CDFI. So a CDFI is a nonprofit mission-driven organization that is independent. It's a network of independent nonprofits across the country that work in community economic development and a number of other capacities. And microloans are they're often funded by the Small Business Association, the SBA. Those are managed sometimes by CDFIs, sometimes by banks, sometimes by other organizations in the community. They're often under $50,000, although those terms are different, but they are another business funding option. So the pros of a CDFI: there's a wide variety of applicants and industries. Our goal, our ambition, is to work with the people who don't have opportunity through the traditional avenues. We're mission driven. We offer things like technical assistance. That's what I do full time, is I work with our clients on the execution of their business to help it succeed and thrive. CDFIs offer often competitive terms to the traditional market. You're typically going to get your best terms at a bank, but not far off from that is going to be the CDFI. This concept of bankability: it is somebody's not ready, or a business is not ready to work with a bank. There's no proof of concept. There's no demonstrated cash flow. They say, well, go work with our partners at a place like People Inc. You come down here, it's a good fit with us. 2 years later, you have proof of concept, you have demonstrated cash flow, and you return to the bank and you're able to refinance with them or get the line of credit. The bank gets all of the ancillary business, including deposit accounts and insurance. CDFIs, at least our CDFI, doesn't operate in those sectors. And then another advantage is flexibility. We look at the loan proposal holistically. We can think outside of the box, as actually my colleague Leslie, I've heard her say often. There are no rigid regulated cutoffs on your credit score or on the debt to income ratio. We can look at it, take it all into account to determine whether it's a good loan proposal for us and the small business owner. The downsides: it is more expensive than your traditional avenues, more opportunity, but the rates are a bit higher. There's some red tape that you have to get through. You have to write a business plan. You have to have your tax returns. You have to, documentation that goes along with the proposal. So the timeline is not your quickest. You're not going to have these funds by the end of the week. Ours come in the form of term loans only. We don't have lines of credit. We don't have any revolving loan products of any kind. And it does affect your credit. Your credit scores, or your credit report and your credit score, are pulled. We do report to the credit bureaus. There's a little slide about CDFIs and some of the statistics across the country as an industry. I believe it's something like 1,000 institutions across the country. And then alternative, which is a pretty broad term. Many things can fall into the category of alternative lending. Sometimes it's in the form of invoice financing or merchant cash advances, strategic alliances with other organizations or other businesses. There might be local or government initiatives in your region or locality. Oftentimes, these come in the form of revitalization efforts for downtowns or for derelict areas of a town or a city. The big thing to remember with alternative forms is know the cost of the money. So invoice financing, for instance, I already said there's no wrong answer. It's just what's right for your business. Something like invoice financing might be right for you. You can get that funding very quickly, but they are really short terms with really high interest, and they are expected to be repaid as soon as they can be. So in the invoice financing, they take a percentage of every sale over the course of 6 months or 9 months to repay it right away. And so the cost of your money in that case is very high, but you get it very quickly. Whereas there might be a local initiative that has, based on your industry and your experience, a 0% interest rate. Not all alternative lending is predatory lending, but beware predatory lending. There is no one official definition of predatory lending. If it was, they would write a piece of policy and it would be gone forever. It would be that easy. All you can do is look out for the features of predatory lending. So this is exorbitantly high fees attached to the loan, these big balloon payments that capitalize all at once, exorbitant interest rates, and I'm talking 218%, complicated legalese. If you don't really know what the terms of the loan are, that's a red flag. If they can't explain it to you in clear terms, you don't know what you're buying, that's a red flag. So this is not an exhaustive, all-inclusive list, but these are some of the things that funders are going to ask for. A loan application, sometimes a business plan. I include this because we do. Cash flow projections, usually for at least 2 years. Best practice with cash flow projections, just for the health of your business, is to do it through stabilization of your business so that you know, okay, it'll take me 18 months for this business to turn cash flow positive, for instance. A balance sheet for the assets and liabilities. A profit and loss statement, sometimes called an income statement or a revenue statement. Your tax returns. If you are trying to get the credit in your name, this will usually be your personal tax returns. But if you have business tax returns, that might be the case. Your personal financial statements often, so that they know, so things like pay stubs, so that they know how much income you make. They often look for an equity injection. A bank is looking for something like 15 to 35%. At a CDFI, that's one of the places where we can be flexible. In our experience, it often is a good sign. We like to see an equity injection of some kind because it shows dedication and commitment on the part of the entrepreneur to make it work. They're going to want to know how to discuss potential collateral, the value of it, how accessible it is. Are there any other liens on it? And then a personal guarantee. So whether if you can do that or whether you have to work with a co-signer or have a guarantor support of some kind. In the lending world, there's what is sometimes called the 5 C's. Sometimes people call it 7 C's, but the basic 5 C's is character. That's your personal character. How do they, your relationship with them, how do they sense your ability to fulfill the terms of this loan, and the business's capacity to repay. So does it generate enough internal cash flow to justify and service the debt that you're going to incur? The capital, so the overall financial health of the business, other sources of liquidity, the collateral, the value of the physical assets and what you're willing to attach to the loan, and then the conditions. And it's both the conditions of the loan, the purpose of it. Are you going to buy equipment with it? Is it, how are you going to use the funds? And also the market conditions, the external factors like what the prime rate is, what the appetite for that industry might be at the time. So why do people get turned down? They have insufficient collateral. They don't have enough to attach to the value of the loan. They have personal credit issues like a low score. They have repayment, a damaged or challenged repayment history. A co-signer is often a good way to help with credit issues. You might have too much personal debt, the amount that you've already incurred. They don't want a loan on top of it. And then their risk appetite. It might be the risk appetite at that time in the market. It might be specific to your industry or your business. This is a place where CDFIs, I have heard it referred to as de-risk industries. So it might be an industry that doesn't yet have demonstrated bankability. That's a business that slips down and sifts down into the world of the CDFIs. The gold standard of this was about 20 years ago. It was microbrews. That was not a bankable industry at the time. It's highly regulated. It's risky. There was no demonstrated proof of concept. That was the early stages of beer culture. That was an industry that sifted down into the CDFI world. And now 20 years later, microbrews, well run, are a very bankable industry. Be prepared, not surprised. So these are some things you might be asked for. It's not a guarantee, but be prepared to do them if the funder or the creditor asks for them. A business plan. I've often heard that a business plan is a working organic document. You don't write a brand new draft every time you need it. It's something that helps you assess your standing with your business at any given time. They might ask you to pitch your business off of that business plan. They likely will ask for a budget for the deployment of the capital that they're funding. And the process moves as quickly as your follow through. Oftentimes, the things holding back our loans from approval, or even just assessment is we're missing that one last document. We still haven't gotten that one last tax return or whatever. The quicker you follow through, the quicker the funder will be able to exercise their policy. Through every process, take it as it comes, take it one step at a time. It can feel like a huge mountain to climb, but what can you do today, right now? Sometimes you do have to wait. The important thing to remember is that you are not alone in the process. There are support agencies, there are tools. No one is a subject matter expert on every subject, and it is all learnable. Some other resources to learn what you need to learn and get connected to the people who can help you. The Small Business Development Center in your region. We have 4 down here in the Southwest that I've been working very closely with in my role here. An organization called SCORE, which is another small business support agency. SCORE provides mentors that are often industry specific in your region. That, I'm opening an ecotourism business in Southwest Virginia, and they'll hook you up with somebody in Asheville who has similar experience. SCORE also has excellent worksheets and templates for some of this documentation that I talked about today. To get plugged into your local network is always a good step because they've all opened a business, or many of them have opened a business in the region. So they're going to know where to go for business licenses or good quality insurance for your area. And you can start, a good place to start is the Chamber of Commerce in your area, the Office of Economic Development, or any industry colleagues that you might know. These are learning resources that I specifically use, and this is not exhaustive either, but the Bristol Chamber has a good resource library for starting a business in this region. They have some tools for on the Tennessee side and some tools for the Virginia side. I have Noon Knowledge right here. I've gotten a lot out of these webinars twice a month. I personally use NerdWallet, Investopedia, and BenchBlog all the time when I need explanation on a concept. They have great explainer articles on how do I make a balance sheet? What does it show? You can learn a lot from very thorough, well thought out, very kind of consumer or client facing write-ups where you don't have to know the lingo because they'll explain it to you. And I found that incredibly valuable. So that is that portion of the training. And I'd like now to start a Q&A with my lender colleague, Leslie. So thanks for joining us, Leslie.
Thanks for everything you just presented, Justin. That was great information.
Great. Well, I wanted to get some hands-on feedback from you about your experience because you've been a business lender advisor with People Inc. for many years. You've also been in the traditional sector. And so what's the first thing that you want to know from a client when they walk into the office or call you up to talk about funding their business?
Great question. I think typically the first thing I would want to know from that client is what are the funds for? What is going to be the return on investment for their business? You talked about that as well when you were talking about the numbers and what you're asking for. Is it going to help, whatever they're asking for, help improve their cash flow? Hugely important question is how is it going to be repaid? And then collateral, what types of equipment or other property or anything would they be offering as collateral for that loan? So those are probably the top 4 questions I would be looking at.
Are you getting a sense at that time of your interpersonal dynamic with them? Like how it is to communicate with them, how diligent they are?
100%. And you can definitely get a feel for that from the very first meeting. Just their understanding of the business, how active they are in, um, providing information to you, ability to ask the questions. And it's okay to not know the answer to questions. That's kind of what we're there for. But it's just a great opportunity to really start that initial relationship.
In your experience working on the business side specifically, what are some of the obstacles that holds a potential client back?
I would say probably the biggest one is not understanding their numbers. I think so many, especially solo entrepreneurs or new businesses, are really good at working in their business, but don't spend enough time working on their business. So it's really important to have a good understanding of your numbers, where you are, where you want to go. Um, you mentioned a good accounting system or a good team of experts on your side. I can't stress enough the amazing resources that are available to small businesses right now that are all free. Lotus, this new knowledge series, is one of them. I mean, if you go back and visit the website or the YouTube channel, there's probably hundreds of videos of all different types of knowledge that business owners can obtain from that. But your local small business development centers, SCORE, your Chamber of Commerce, your Economic Development Authority, all of those resources are free, and they are there to help businesses and small business owners. So it is fantastic to just take advantage of those opportunities, build out your network. It's going to help you tenfold.
There's a great on the Virginia SBDC website.
Mm-hmm.
They have an events page that is all of the Virginia SBDC events across the state. And so that's a great resource that I've been using a lot because a lot of times it's an SBDC in Hampton Roads that you don't even have a relationship with, but they're doing a webinar on government contracting. And those are going on most days of the work week. There are some kind of either live, in-person, or virtual trainings. And so you can get really specific when you go in and you look at the range of options across the state. And then you start to refine that down and get to the more granular level for in your region.
Well, the funny thing about that is, and I've kind of I didn't coin the phrase, but I've been trying to practice this in all aspects of my life, is just showing up. Even if it's something you don't necessarily think that it might apply to you. I mean, there's all kinds of live webinars, like you said, just put those on your calendar and show up. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many times just by showing up, you take away at least just one little nugget of information is all you need for something to be valuable, or one new connection or one new resource. They're out there, and there are so many of them, and they all want to help the
And
small business.
ultimately, you don't know what you don't know. So
Exactly.
sometimes you might feel like I've got a good handle on this, and then you take a webinar or you listen to somebody's feedback and you go, oh, something about the industry has changed, or I overlooked something, or I got so in the weeds on this other thing that I missed something. And there might be a great efficiency there.
Mhm.
So how do you work in your capacity with People Inc. as a business lender advisor? How do you work with traditional banks and alongside the traditional banks in support of what's that relationship like?
We actually have a fantastic relationship with traditional banks. It's not a competition. And right now is almost a fabulous time to just kind of jump off, because many banks are tightening their lending belts in this current environment. But the whole mission of People Inc. is to provide opportunities for underserved entrepreneurs and lower income communities that are unable to get a traditional bank loan. So that is one way that we can really partner with them. So because the banks certainly have a holistic approach and want to help you. And, we don't have deposits. We don't have, checking accounts, credit cards, all these other services. So that's, you mentioned earlier about developing a relationship with your banker, not your bank, because they can really help you with all these other services that you can use in your business to help you get ahead and succeed. But what we can do then is kind of assist you with the credit counseling or those startup funds and help you develop that path for success. So then we can then send you back to your banks. So now you've been in business for longer. Now you've um, taking care of any of those potential credit issues. And so now you're much more bankable. But we can also partner with banks because sometimes there are, limitations as to what they can do, or they can do some of it, but maybe not all of it. And it's a way that we can all kind of partner together on that. But the whole mission is just to see you succeed.
So you're talking in that last part, you're talking about in capital terms that they might be able
Absolutely.
to back 75% of what the monetary ask is, but they need a bridge to it really is the client can demonstrate the need for the full amount that they're asking for, but the bank just can't get that through underwriting and working along with a CDFI or People Inc. in this case might be a way to get that bridge to get the full amount.
Correct. And just in terms of the bank maybe not being able to do it, there's a couple of very common reasons why the local or traditional bank may not be able to do something. One is credit. I believe you mentioned earlier, we don't have a minimum credit score, so we will work with all types of credit. And then the other big one is length of time in business. So most traditional lenders are going to look for at least 2 years, two solid years of financials to show to demonstrate. But we can kind of step in and help those startups as well.
Yeah. So what is a green flag? What looks good to you when you're working with a client?
A business plan. Anyone who's taken it from here to paper to help the world understand what it is who they are and what they're trying to accomplish and where they want to go. So business plan is probably the most important thing as you're getting started. I know you mentioned earlier, our partnerships with the small business development centers. We love those because they are really good at connecting with small business owners, developing that business plan or enhancing that. But understanding your numbers, that's another one. Understanding what your expenses are, what your revenue sources are or could be, and know how much you want. You mentioned that earlier too, not just a guess, but be able to articulate exactly how much you need, what it's going to be used for, and what that's going to bring to your revenue stream in the coming months or year or 2 years, and how that's going to affect your business.
An interesting thing when I've been analyzing business plans and cash flow projections along with the team is we are counting on the client to be the expert on their business. They have a lot more capacity, they have a lot more experience with it, they understand their industry better, and oftentimes those documents, those tools that you were talking about really demonstrate that. Wow, this person has a great amount of experience. They really understand the ins and outs of this industry so well that's something that I see come up a lot when we're looking at the documents they've sent to us.
Justin, we did have a couple of questions from
Right.
the group. One was, would a CDFI microloan probably be your best option for startup funding when you hope to pay back the loan early? I'd be happy to answer that one. Yes, it would definitely be one of your best choices. Traditional lending and many of the lending sources, as we mentioned earlier, being a startup without having the solid couple of years of financials under your belt is going to be a challenge to get it financed elsewhere. So that's why a CDFI or microloan program is a fantastic option for that. And then there was another question about also, isn't there another newer category considered crowd lending? Are you familiar with that? From what I know, and I'll just jump in there too, crowdfunding was the initial thing that was pretty popular, starting about 10 years ago, maybe longer. I don't know my dates. And crowdfunding was typically where you had participants, you pitched your idea or what you want on a platform, and participants could donate to that. Sometimes they'd get rewards for it, such as a product or something else. Now, lending is a newer concept. It's more of a platform where you're borrowing money and you have to pay it back with interest. But that's about all I know about crowd lending. I'm not as familiar with it.
I'd say,
Anybody
yeah,
else?
that's about the amount of exposure I have to it. I have learned about its existence. I don't have any hands-on experience with it. But yeah, thank you for that seed. Now I'll go digging about that.
Right.
Do we have any more questions?
I don't see anything, but just out of curiosity, I guess this is more for Leslie because you do more lending. What are the top 3 or 4 things that when someone comes to talk to you about a loan that they are either not prepared for or maybe negatively influence your decision on, is this a good loan to do?
I would definitely say probably the number one thing I hear when we start, talking about, or when I have an inquiry or start talking to someone, and I do like to mention very early on in our conversations about collateral, that some type of collateral is required for the loan. Most people either say, no, I don't have one, or I don't want to. One thing to keep in mind about that is you're coming to a lender requesting money to take a risk on a business, particularly for a startup that you haven't started. And if you haven't been prepared to invest something into your business, something, having what they call skin in the game, it's difficult to then expect a lender to then take that risk all on themselves. So that, as I mentioned, the business plan is a big one. And again, your numbers, just having a good idea of what your numbers are or what you propose them to be, and where you want to go with that.
Leslie and Josh, I'm sorry, or Justin, sorry. I'm sorry I was late. I had all kinds of
You missed all the games.
interruptions. But the thing that I keep running into at the incubator is that folks come to me from Bristol, Tennessee, or Bluntville, or they've heard about our classes and all the resources. People Incorporated doesn't have those sorts of services in Tennessee, right?
We can go into Sullivan County because of because of Bristol. And then in West Virginia, we can go into Mercer County because of Bluefield. But the
Okay.
rest of it is all in Southwest and Northern Virginia.
Okay, well, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
I don't see any other questions, but Leslie, Justin, thanks so much for leading today's session. We couldn't do this program without folks like yourself volunteering your expertise and your knowledge and time, especially because you don't just put these slides or these presentations together in a drop of a hat. So we really do appreciate it. And, our goal, as I said at the beginning, is to help our entrepreneurs and people that's participated in our business challenges in the past to grow their skills, because what we want to do is invest in them to do so that they can have the best in return in their new businesses in our communities, not just Washington County, but all throughout the region and the communities that we serve. So thanks so much for doing that. And as a just reminder that today's session will be posted, the video, on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in New Knowledge, and you'll see probably about 220 to 230 workshops that we've done since 2015 when we started recording those. Also, it will be on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and some other pages that a lot of our viewers will look at. Just want to do a plug for our next session, which will be on May the 1st. It will be the last in our marketing series for our spring programs that Letterpress Communications is going to be leading. Alexandria Fetch will be back, and she's going to be talking on measuring your success. You know, you can pour a lot of money into marketing, but are you getting that return, and how do you judge if it's working or not? So I hope you will plan to join us, and we will soon be planning our fall series of New Knowledge sessions. So if you have a suggestion on a topic and even a speaker, because we have to go knocking on doors to try to find somebody that's knowledgeable in the content, let us know really soon, because we're doing this to help our business communities in Southwest Virginia, Virginia, and beyond now. So again, today's session has been recorded, and if you ever want to go back and look at for previous ones, just go to our YouTube channel and on New Knowledge. So thanks again for coming. Please join us again, and I hope that you benefited from the presentation. I know I learned a few things myself. So thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.